Yeah, a lot of it we found. George's widow Sarah early on gave us access to his archives of film, from everything from 8mm, 16mm to Betamax tapes and that sort of thing. And that's where we found a lot of the stuff. The RFK clip where he says, you don't know who George Plimpton is, and the crowd says no. That was at the bottom of a box on an unmarked tape that we had no idea until we popped it in what it was. The other things, the Bruins footage came from the NHL, who have no idea who shot it.
So if anyone knows, please tell us.
I'm trying to think what else. The police deposition was entered into evidence at the Sirhan trial, and no one had transferred it over yet, so we just thought we'd give it a listen and kind of lucked out, and it was the only time we ever found that George had talked about that night. And then the Morgan Library, which holds the Paris Review archives, they very nicely let us in and put a lot of things right into our hands that they probably shouldn't have. Everything from the Hemingway letter to a letter from Jack Kerouac, and we spent a long time in there just rifling through the archives, which was wonderful.
The Exeter story, this is an interesting question. So there's a million conflicting stories. Gay Talese told us this really crazy Baroque story that George had stuck up a what was it?
Gas station.
A gas station, yeah, just to try it or something. Someone told us that, or George himself, I guess, had in a speech once said that he was stealing a big trophy head. It was like a boar's trophy head out of one of the lounges for the teachers. There were a number. There was like 8 or 9 of these conflicting stories. But he was already into Harvard. I mean, this was like 3-4 weeks before he was going to graduate. He ended up finishing his term at his grandparents' house in Daytona Beach, Florida. So he finished at a big public high school down there, and then went on to Harvard. But yeah, there's a bunch of like really funny stories about that. There were just too many for us to get them all in there. One of the things we really liked, I think I'm speaking for both of us here, that didn't make the film, was that George would play, kind of do these cameos in various films where he kind of always just played himself a little bit. We kind of show the scene where he plays with John Wayne, but he was also in Lawrence of Arabia as a Bedouin extra. He was in Reds, which was the big Warren Beatty film. He was in Good Will Hunting, which is a real famous film, obviously, up here. He was probably in 35 movies.
He played Tom Hanks' dad in Volunteers.
Yeah. He was a very serious weatherman in L.A. Story, which is my favorite of his cameos. So that was a scene that we really liked, but it just felt like one thing too many. And then the other thing that we really loved that didn't make the film, among many, many, many other things, was the fake picture that George had created as an April Fool's prank for Sports Illustrated in the early 80s called Sid Finch, who was he was a Tibetan monk that could allegedly pitch a 168-mile-an-hour fastball. That he wrote about this for SI, and it was like a big thing. And they got the Mets to play ball, and so he has all these photos of the Mets and like this teacher from Nebraska that played the pitcher, and it was crazy. And so everyone thought there was a real pitcher that the Mets had signed that could pitch 168 miles an hour. And it was just a mess. Anyway, that just didn't feel germane to George's arc and his story, so we ultimately had to lose it. But there's many other things as well. Well, thank you all again so much.